Hi everyone, Bree Page here for xStarsAtNight. This is a new series I'm launching called Audio Enhanced. It's a series where I take chapters of books and I read them and I add sound effects to them. So the first book I'm going to read is called Just Listen by Sarah Dessen. It's one of my favorite books by her, and I'll add a link in the description below where you can buy the book. So instead of trying to summarize it for you, I'm going to read what it says on the back. Annabelle Green is the girl who has everything. At least, that's what she portrays in her modeling shoots. But Annabelle's life is far from perfect. Her friendship with Sophie ended bitterly, and her older sister's eating disorder is weighing down the entire family. Isolated and ostracized at school and at home, Annabelle retreats into silent acceptance. Then she meets Owen. Intense, music-obsessed, and determined to always tell the truth. And with his guidance, Annabelle learns to just listen to herself and gains the courage to speak honestly. But will she be able to tell everyone what really happened the night she and Sophie stopped being friends? Chapter 1. I taped the commercial back in April, before anything had happened, and promptly forgot about it. A few weeks ago, it had started running, and suddenly, I was everywhere. On the rows of screens hanging over the ellipticals at the gym, on the monitor they have at the post office that's supposed to distract you from how long you've been waiting in line, and now here, on the TV in my room. As I sat at the edge of my bed, fingers clenched into my palms, trying to make myself get up and leave. It's that time of year again. I stared at myself on the screen as I was 5 months earlier, looking for any difference, some visible proof of what had happened to me. First, though, I was struck by the sheer oddness of seeing myself without benefit of a mirror or photograph. I'd never gotten used to it, even after all this time. Football games, I watched myself say. I was wearing a baby blue cheerleader uniform, hair pulled back into a tight ponytail, and clutching a huge megaphone, the kind nobody ever used anymore, emblazoned with a K. Study hall, cut to me in a serious plaid skirt and brown crop sweater, which I remembered feeling itchy and so wrong to be wearing just as it was getting warm, finally. And, of course, social life. I leaned in, staring at me on screen, now outfitted in jeans and a glittery tee and seated on a bench, turning to speak this line while a group of other girls chatted silently behind me. The director, fresh-faced and just out of film school, had explained to me the concept of this, his creation. The girl who has everything, he said, moving his hand in a tight circular motion as if that was all it took to encompass something so vast, not to mention vague. Clearly, it meant having a megaphone, some smarts, and a big group of friends. Now, I might have dwelled on the explicit irony of the last one, but the on-screen me was already moving on. It's all happening this year, I said. Now I was in a pink gown, a sash reading Homecoming Queen stretched across my midsection as a boy in a tux stepped up beside me, extending his arm. I took it, giving him a wide smile. He was a sophomore at the local university and mostly kept to himself at the shooting. Although later, as I was leaving, he asked me for my number. How had I forgotten that? The best times, the me on screen was saying now. The best memories. And you'll find the right clothes for them all at Koff's department store. The camera moved in, closer, closer until all you could see was my face, the rest dropping away. This had been before that night, before everything that had happened with Sophie, before this long, lonely summer of secrets and silence. I was a mess. But this girl, she was fine. You could tell the way she stared out at me and the world so confidently as she opened her mouth to speak again. Make your new year the best one yet, she said, and I felt my breath catch, anticipating the next line, the last line, the one that only this time was finally true. It's time to go back to school. The shot froze, the Koff's logo appearing before me. In moments, it would switch to a frozen waffle commercial or the latest weather, this 15 seconds folding seamlessly into another, but I didn't wait for that. Instead, I picked up the remote, turned myself off, and headed out the door. I'd had over 3 months to get ready to see Sophie, but when it happened, I still wasn't ready. I was in the parking lot before first bell, trying to muster up what it would take to get out and officially let the year begin. As people streamed past, talking and laughing, en route to the courtyard, I kept working on all the maybes. Maybe she was over it now. Maybe something else had happened over the summer to replace our little drama. Maybe it was never as bad as I thought. All of these were long shots, but still possibilities. I sat there until the very last moment before finally drawing the keys out of the ignition. When I reached for the door handle, turning to my window, she was right there. For a second, we stared at each other, and I instantly noticed the changes in her. Her dark curly hair was shorter, her earrings new. She was skinnier, if that was possible, and had done away with the thick eyeliner she'd taken to wearing the previous spring, replacing it with a more natural look, all bronze and pinks. I wondered, in her first glance, what was different in me. Just as I thought this, Sophie opened her perfect mouth, narrowing her eyes at me, and delivered the verdict I'd spent my summer waiting. Bitch. The glass between us didn't muffle the sound or the reaction of the people passing by. I saw a girl from my English class the year before narrow her eyes, while another girl, a stranger, laughed out loud. Sophie, though, remained expressionless as she turned her back, hiking her bag over one shoulder and starting down to the courtyard. My face was flushed, and I could feel people staring. I wasn't ready for this, but then I probably never would be. And this year, like so much else, wouldn't wait. I had no choice but to get out of my car, with everyone watching, and being it in earnest alone. So I did. I had first met Sophie 4 years earlier, at the beginning of summer after 6th grade. I was at the neighborhood pool, standing in the snack bar line with 2 damp dollar bills to buy a Coke, when I felt someone step up behind me. I turned my head, and there was this girl, a total stranger, standing there in a skimpy orange bikini and matching thick platform flip-flops. She had olive skin and thick, curly dark hair pulled up into her high ponytail and was wearing black sunglasses and a bored, impatient expression. In our neighborhood, where everyone knew everyone, it was like she had fallen out of the sky. I didn't mean to stare, but apparently I was. "What?" she said to me. I could see myself reflected in the lens of her glasses, small and out of perspective. "What are you looking at?" I felt my face flush, as it did any time anybody raised their voice at me. I was entirely too sensitive to tone, so much that even court show TVs got me upset. I always had to change the channel when the judge ripped into anyone. "Nothing," I said, and turned back around. A moment later, the high school guy working the snack bar waved me up with a tired look. While he poured my drink, I could feel the girl behind me, her presence like a weight. As I smoothed my 2 bills out flat on the glass beneath my fingers, concentrating on getting every single crease. After I paid, I walked away, studiously keeping my eyes on the pocked cement of the walkway, as I made my way around the deep end to where my best friend, Clark Reynolds, was waiting. "Whitney said to tell you she's going home," she said, blowing her nose as I carefully put the Coke on the pavement beside my chair. "I told her we could walk." "Okay," I said. My sister Whitney had just gotten her license, which meant that she had to drive me places. Getting home, however, remained my own responsibility, whether from the pool, which was walking distance, or the mall, one town over, which wasn't. Whitney was a loner, even then. Any space around her was her personal space, and just by existing, you were encroaching. It was only after I sat down that I finally allowed myself to look at the girl with the orange bikini. She had just left the snack bar and was standing across the pool from us, her towel over one arm, a drink in her hand, surveying the layout of benches and chairs. "Here," Clark said, handing over the deck of cards she was holding. "It's your deal." Clark had been my best friend since we were 6 years old. There were tons of kids in our neighborhood, but for some reason, most of them were in their teens, like my sister, or 4 and below, a result of the baby boom a couple years previously. When Clark's family moved from Washington, D.C., our moms met at a community watch meeting. As soon as they realized we were the same age, they put us together, and we stayed the way ever since. Clark had been born in China, and the Reynoldses had adopted her when she was 6 months old. We were the same height, but that was about all we had in common. I was blonde hair and blue-eyed, a typical green, while she had the darkest, shiniest hair I had ever seen, and eyes so brown they were almost black. While I was timid and too eager to please, Clark was more serious, her tone, personality, and appearance all measured and thoughtful. I'd been modeling since before I could even remember, following my sisters before me. Clark was a total tomboy, the best soccer player on our block, not to mention a whiz at cards, especially gin rummy, at which she'd been beating me all summer. "Can I have a sip of your drink?" Clark asked me. Then she sneezed. "It's hot out here." I nodded, reaching down to get it for her. Clark had bad allergies year-round, but in the summer they hit fever pitch. She was usually either stuffed up, dripping, or blowing from April to October, and no amount of shots or pills seemed to work. I'd long grown used to her adenoidal voice, as well as the omnipresent pack of Kleenex in her pocket or hand. There was an organized hierarchy to the seating at our pool. The lifeguards got the picnic tables near the snack bar, while the moms and little kids stuck by the shallow end, and the baby, i.e. pee pool. Clark and I preferred the half-shaded area behind the kiddie slides, where the more popular high school guys, like Chris Pennington, 3 years older than me and hands down the most gorgeous guy in our neighborhood. And I thought then possibly the world hung out by the high dive. The prime spot was the stretch of chairs between the snack bar and lap lane, which was usually taken by the most popular high school girls. That's where my oldest sister, Kirsten, was stretched out on a chaise, wearing a hot pink bikini and fanning herself with a glamour magazine. Once I dealt out our cards, I was surprised to see the girl in orange walk over to where Kirsten was sitting. Taking the chair next to her, Molly Clayton, Kirsten's best friend, who was on her other side, nudged her, then nodded at the girl. Kirsten looked up and over, then shrugged and laid back down, throwing her arm over her face. Annabelle? Clark had already picked up her cards and was too impatient to start beating me. It's your draw. Okay, I said, turning back to her. Right. The next afternoon, the girl was back, this time in a silver bathing suit. When I got there, she was already set up in the same chair my sister had been in the day before. Her towel spread out, bottled water beside her, magazine in her lap. Clark was at a tennis lesson, so I was alone when Kirsten and her friends arrived about an hour later. They came in loud as always, their shoes thwacking down on the pavement. When they reached their usual spot and saw the girl standing there, they slowed, then looked at one another. Molly Clayton looked annoyed, but Kirsten just moved about 4 chairs down and set up camp as always. For the next few days, I watched as the new girl kept up her stubborn efforts to infiltrate my sister's group. What began as just taking a chair escalated, by day 3 to following them to the snack bar. The next afternoon, she got in the water seconds after they did, staying just about a foot down the wall as they bobbed and topped, splashing one another. By the weekend, she was trailing behind them constantly, a living shadow. It had to be annoying. I've seen Molly shoot her a couple nasty looks, and even Kirsten had asked her to back up, please, when she'd gotten a little too close in the deep end. But the girl didn't seem to care. If anything, she just stepped up her efforts more, as if it didn't matter what they were saying as long as they were talking to her, period. Okay, so this is the first part of Chapter 1 of Just Listen by Sarah Dessen. I hope what you've heard so far has intrigued you. Remember, you can find a link to buy the book in the description below, plus all links to my socials. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Part 2 will be coming out on Friday, that's November 23rd. I love y'all, and I'll see you in the next episode.